Hi, I'm Eric Edberg, the founding artistic director of the Greencastle Summer Music Festival, which morphed into the Greencastle Virtual Music Festival during the pandemic shutdown. Welcome to my living room, and thank you so much for having us into yours. As a matter of fact, tonight I get to welcome you to Mark and Maggie O'Connor's living room, because what we're watching now is a replay of the live stream performance that we had presented by the DePauw Performing Arts Series on Wednesday, April 7th from Mark and Maggie's living room. Mark O'Connor, if you are not familiar with his work, came to prominence as a teenager. He's made 46 albums, won 3 Grammys. Chet Atkins said he was one of the few musicians he would actually pay his own money to hear. He's made 2 albums with Yo-Yo Ma and Edgar Meyer and created what's really become part of our culture, Appalachian Waltz. Just amazing guy, and he's joined as part of the Mark O'Connor duo with his wife Maggie, wonderful violinist, singer, also plays the cello some, and we just had this wonderful privilege of hearing them perform from their home in North Carolina on Zoom. We had some technical difficulties with restreaming that onto YouTube and Facebook, and also we were not recording the program, and we realized that wasn't happening. So we're joining this program in progress, and you'll hear Maggie introducing and Mark introducing the piece that they're starting with. We still have over 50 minutes of music, and interspersed with the music are some question and answers from people who were in the audience on Zoom. So if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, which means you're on the internet, we do have our Zoom watch parties and conversations every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. at GVMF.live. If you're watching this on cable access TV here in Putnam County, Indiana, and aren't able to join us on the internet, just know that we're thinking of you. We miss you. We hope that we're able to see you when we start live concerts in person. And so now, here are Mark and Maggie O'Connor with their April 7th show from their living room in progress.
But we're going to mix it up now. Mark's got his guitar, and we, in the O'Connor band especially, we kind of broadened our repertoire to do more singing and kind of Americana folk music. So this is actually a Dolly Parton song, and I think this is a wonderful kind of springtime themed song, so that's why we picked it for you. It's Wildflowers, and I'm sure you're getting some wildflowers now this time of year. And I love the message of it. It's about how wildflowers, they flourish no matter where they are. They're just going to make the best of their existence wherever they are. Wildflowers don't care where they grow, and I think that's such an important thing to think about during this pandemic. You know, we might all be stuck where we are, but we can still learn to flourish in all these new, exciting ways.
Wildflowers, and I was as wild, even wilder than they. For at least I could run. They just died in the sun, and I refused to just wither in place. Just a wild mountain rose needing freedoms to grow. So horrific every time where I go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wildflowers don't care where they grow. had no room for growth, but I wanted so much to branch out. So I uprooted myself from my home ground life, took my dreams and I took to the road. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wild flowers don't care where they grow. I grew up fast and wild, and I never felt right in a garden so different from me. I just never belonged, I just longed to be gone. So the garden one day set me free. I hitched a ride with the wind, and since he was my friend, I just let him decide where we go. When a flower grows wild, it can always survive. Wild flowers don't care where they grow. Just a wild rambling rose, seeking mysteries untold. No regret for the path that I chose. When a flower goes wild, it can always survive. Wild flowers don't care where they grow.
All right, Maggie O'Connor on the vocal. Beautiful Dolly Parton song. Thank you. All right, Maggie, we'll come back in a minute here. I'm gonna do a guitar solo that is featured on my new guitar album. And earlier in the show, Eric was talking about what things came out of this pandemic for us. And there's been quite a few, and the guitar album is a surprising element of being cooped up in the house for like a year and having the guitar just hanging around and extra time, just to work on things. And so I started coming up with more and more arrangements for guitar. And I had no idea this was going to be an album. When I first started it, I actually started coming up with guitar arrangements just a couple of years before the pandemic hit. I had just returned to the guitar really in earnest about 4 years ago after a 20-year layoff. And so I only had, about 5 arrangements. And then I added this one at the beginning of all this craziness, going home. And then I just kept going. I kept adding more and more until I came up with 10. I went, oh my gosh, I have a whole album's worth. And so the last time I had released a solo guitar album, believe it or not, I was 16 years old. And it was called Markology. And it was done in 1978. And so this is a sequel, 42 years later. And I don't think I would have ever done it if I hadn't had that extra time on the guitar to do something like that. All solo guitar. So this is Going Home. You'll recognize it as Dvorak. And part of it is the old African-American spiritual that he used and I put it up into a kind of an optimistic tempo. Hope you enjoy it. All right. Hope you enjoyed going home on the solo guitar. That's going to be out in just in about 2 weeks, a week and a half. I'm dedicating it to Tony Rice, an incredible bluegrass guitarist that was a big mentor of mine and a friend. Played a lot of music with him over the years, and he just passed away recently, so it's going to be a dedicated album in his memory. Tony Rice and his brother Wyatt Rice also wrote some album notes for it too, so It's really a special release for me. It's my 46th feature album.
Oh, that's amazing, and that was just so beautiful, so beautiful. And Peter on an iPhone has had his hand raised for a while. So Peter, what is your question? Please go ahead and mute yourself. Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, awesome. All right, thank you, Mark, for doing this. It's really great hearing you. I did play in an orchestra many, many years back in high school, and you visited, and I was quite inspired, so I appreciate that. I'm a former student of our lovely host here, Eric Edberg. So I'm a classically trained, eyes glued to the sheet music musician. I was wondering if you have any advice for training my natural music making, improvisation, composing on my specific instrument. I'm thinking more along the lines of rigorous ear training and methods that I could use in this environment where I have no ability to play with bands or other musicians in other styles.
Well, that's a big question, Peter. Well, it's one of the reasons why I spent 12 years authoring a method. And we not only have the violin book series, but we also have one for your instrument, the cello, or at least the first two books, and we have a couple of books for viola and for orchestra. But it's the idea is that string players should be absorbing some of the American music styles because the styles are inherently creative. And matter of fact, we wouldn't have these styles without the creative musicians who supported them and added to them each and every time they played. Each community in Americana. I mean, and it was not limited. American music is not limited to these shores. I mean, my great teacher Stefan Grappelli was probably one of the greatest. I mean, in my mind, my teacher was the best jazz violin player ever to come. And of course, as we know, jazz is American music, and he's from Paris, France. So it wasn't that you had to be from Tennessee or Mississippi or New Orleans or something, or we're in North Carolina right now, the heart of bluegrass music. But it's mainly getting those American and not just tunes, because a lot of people say, well, I can play the tune, I can play the theme. And certainly if you can read music, you can put the tune and the theme right on the sheet music page and then read it down. But it's really about the styles, I think. And when you think about improvisation and creativity, you're thinking about what you're saying. It's not just alternate note choices. Like I often tell people, it's not just wiggling your fingers around. That's not creativity musically, and that's not artistry. So it depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to say. We've already played several important genres for you in this show. We hit the breakdown, the hoedown, breakdown, and you can, there's a whole language to go with that stuff, right? And then I played the blues, the modern blues, and you'll notice that I transformed the traditional blues into this new creative thing, right? By using blues expression, blues harmony, and techniques too. I mean, did you notice I was like using this sliding vibrato that was emulating an old blues guitar where they would play with a jackknife, and later it was a steel bar, but early on it was a jackknife, and they would create this kind of vibrato by oscillating that thing, So there's so much language. I think that's the key, Peter, is that you want to dive into the musical language. That's what it's about. So our very first piece that we played, FC's Jig, that's a jig, 6/8. It's got a certain temperament to it. We all know what jigs are, but that is a real lively one. And so if I was going to be, creative in a jig kind of atmosphere, I came up with FC's Jig. And incidentally, that's a derivation of the third movement of my fiddle concerto. So I'm always looking at crossing boundaries blurring those boundaries, bringing those walls down. I think that's a creative process. And also the classical music that we all love, those great master composers were doing similar things. They were bringing down boundaries. Every time they composed, they were thinking about, what kind of rule to break, what kind of way could they stretch the ears of the reviewer that came to see their premiere. I mean, that's what we've all been doing, So I think that what I would say is all about musical language. I would assume, since you're a classical music a student or expert by now, I hope. I would assume that you know the musical language of Mozart, and you would know the language of Brahms. So it's just now you got to get into the language of the blues, language of the African American spiritual, the language of the breakdowns and the hoedowns, and especially the language. I would say the language of ragtime. Get that swing going in your bow. Hope that answers some of that.
Right. Yes, I appreciate it.
And I can tell you that Peter is a really fantastic cellist. And my friend and colleague, Michael Roberts, has his hand raised. So go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I'm really a medium here for young Alex Roberts to ask a question.
So I have two questions. How old were you when you started playing, and how much do you practice on a daily basis?
Oh, Meg, why don't you take that first, and then I'll finish up.
Yeah, good question. So I was 7 when I started playing violin, and as far as my daily practice goes, I think once you get to a certain level, it depends kind of what you're practicing and what you're trying to accomplish. But one thing I wish I would have known as a violin student was that you can get injured physically if you're playing your instrument for over an hour straight. So you should really take a physical break after an hour. Sometimes in classical music especially, people will brag about how many hours they practice that day. And it is good to get those hours in, but what they might not be telling you is they're not doing it all in a row. It's just kind of part of your day. If you're having a practice day, you can get quite a few hours in, but you can have a practice session that's only 20 minutes long, and then you can go do something else, and then you can come back to it. So it's really not as much about how long you practice, but how you practice, and also having shorter sessions so that you can kind of digest, have a specific goal and a certain amount of time to achieve that goal, and kind of it helps keep it simple and less overwhelming that way. But I would say generally, I guess we tend to play about an hour. My practice sessions will be about an hour a day if I'm working towards something.
Yeah, because I'm a composer and I'm always thinking about the context of the music. I actually am having music go through my mind constantly, and I can hardly get rid of it. So it's funny because I don't need as much on the instrument practice. Literally, like I can come to the instrument the next day and play something new that I had not had played before. I must have thought it up somewhere during the last 24 hours, something like that. So that's another really benefit of creativity, is that you can do a lot of work off the instrument. Like Maggie said, when you're really young, that is really the time. And I know it's so frustrating for really young kids because they want to be out playing. I grew up skateboarding, so like that's all I wanted to do for a few years, but I'm so glad I put in the many hours when I was a kid. Yeah. That was that just set the course, because when I was 12, I was practicing up to 10 hours a day, and I was literally learning 5 breakdowns a day, and I was picking things off the phonograph. I had the instrument in my hand literally all day long, on weekends and then after school. So I got a lot of work in early, and then when I became a professional musician, I could, divvy up my time a little bit more and concentrate on all the other things that artists and musicians need to do to have a career. So it worked out really well that way.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a really great question. Hey, before you two play your last set, could you tell us about that white violin on the wall above the fireplace?
Yeah, I'm actually going to, why don't we play that one first?
Sure.
We'll play a tune on it for you. So this is the white fiddle that I grew up playing. When I was 13, I got it from my teacher. It was a barn decoration of all things. And I grew up in Seattle, Washington, and he was living out in the countryside, about 2 hours from Seattle. And he acquired it from his fishing buddy. It was hanging in the barn as a barn decoration. And of course, we were flat broke. We were looking for a new instrument, and then we were going to try to get one of the cheaper instruments from my teacher. And then I said, "What is that?" It was like it was new. It was hanging on the wall. And he said, "Mark, pick that up. You might like it." And I picked it up, and I couldn't put it down. I couldn't believe it. It sounded like a crazy cannon of an instrument. And so I entered all those fiddle contests when I was growing up, and I played this in the National Fiddle Championship. So it's got a real storied past. And I haven't played it professionally since I was 18. And for a while it was hanging in a museum. And then I got it out because I kind of missed it. So it's been hanging up around here. And so during the pandemic, another kind of odd development during the pandemic is that we figured out that I could play one of my old fiddle breakdowns on the white fiddle right here because I didn't have to take it out of the house. I was like, this is like an old relic, and I just didn't want to take it out on the road and only play one tune on it, that kind of stuff. So, so we can play an old tune that I entered the fiddle championships with.
And you have all these signatures.
Yeah, the signatures are just, it was really an attempt to cover up the ugly white paint at first, but it came to be a real big deal in the 70s. And there's quite a few famous players on this. And
is it only signed by fiddle players?
Yeah. Matter of fact, Johnny Gimble, who we played the fiddling around, he's signed right here. Stefan Grappelli, right there, my teacher. Yehudi Menuhin signed it right here. And so I collected signatures on it. There's Hag of Merle Haggard fame and legend. So I collected signatures on it. There's Arnold Steinhardt from the Guarneri String Quartet. Roy Acuff, the king of country music. Vassar Clements, a ton of players, Joe Venuti's on here. So let's play a little Gray Eagle. And Maggie's going to get the cello. And Maggie's got a chopping rhythmic thing that she's doing with the bow for the accompaniment to the Gray Eagle breakdown. And it's fascinating, the groove that we can do. We hope you enjoy this.
We didn't have an upright bass in the house, but we had this cello. And so during the pandemic, I have had a little extra time to learn some cello. Definitely had some more strength to the fingers to push down the strings. But what an awesome instrument. It's been such a joy to kind of mess around on it.
All right. Okay. All right, Maggie on the chop cello. Now you cellists, I know that you're jealous of that chop now. You'll probably, but that's grooving, and to play those breakdowns, you got to have a real feel to it. It's hard to just actually play them by yourself to get the real groove. And thank you, Maggie. Let's do a vocal. So we're going to go from regular cello to mando cello.
Yeah, we'll switch cellos. So Mark's going to get this funny looking, the other instrument on the wall. And it looks kind of like a guitar and kind of like a mandolin, but it's tuned like a cello. But it's actually strung like a mandolin. So mandolins have 2 of each string, whereas cello only has 4 strings. That has 8, but it's just doubled up on each string. So it's extra hard to push the fingers down, but Mark can do it. And this specific mandocello is so beautiful. The sound it gets, it just rings and rings.
It's a 1924 instrument, a Gibson, and I was telling Eric about it actually during sound check. And he didn't realize that they were this old, and they had, their story really has nothing to do with folk music at all. It was all about the mandolin orchestra, and it was a real thing in the 20s. And probably every big city, every major city had a mandolin orchestra. So if you can Google it, I'm sure you can come up with...
There's probably some that still exist.
Yeah, there's a few. I actually played in a couple of them in the 90s. I guested with them once in a while.
What instrument did you guest on?
Mandolin. But there was one in Nashville when I lived there, and there was one out in San Francisco when I lived out there playing with David Grisman, the awesome mandolin player. So we're going to do a song.
Maybe the cello students out there would be interested in playing a mandocello. The fingering is the same.
It's hard to find these, but
they exist.
Yeah, you can find mandolas. They're a little easier on the fingers, and they're more accessible. But check out the mandolas. The same string pitches as the.
That's like the viola.
Is the viola version, yeah.
Mandolin world. So we're gonna do an old time tune called Shady Grove.
had a big fine horse and corn to feed him on, and Shady Grove to stay at home and feed him while he's gone. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. From pretty little Shady Grove, as sweet as brandy wine, and there ain't no girl in this whole world that's prettier than mine. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away.
Maggie O'Connor, ladies and gentlemen. Nice job. Oh, that's fun. I like playing this. It's an instrument that also hangs up on the wall quite a bit. But it's so beautiful. And yeah, I always say another thing, a little tip for you guys that are string players and want to get into some of this music. You know, it wouldn't hurt to actually start doing a plectrum instrument of some kind as a second instrument. You know, whether it's a guitar, a mandolin, a mandola, so you can get some of the rhythm thing going, because you can transfer some of that over to your instrument and to your bowing techniques. Let's do probably my most well-known composition. This is the other piece that people have been asking to play all over the world during the pandemic, and Yo-Yo Ma a few times. I think he's broadcasted 3 different times. It was really the impetus to create the Appalachian Waltz projects with Yo-Yo. He fell in love with this piece immediately, and it's probably my best-known composition. And so we'll play it for you now. It's really heartfelt music. I still call it American classical. It obviously has folk overtones, but it's not folk music. It's not old-time string band music. It's not bluegrass. It's not breakdown fiddling. It's nothing like that. It's like this lives in this other universe. And it was really just born out of a creative idea. And so we hope you like Appalachia Waltz. I also have this for, I mentioned Yo-Yo's played it. I also have this for solo cello, unaccompanied cello. And that's, I have a lot of my music also on Sheet Music Plus for download. And that is a serious big download item, is the unaccompanied cello version of Appalachia Waltz. All right, Appalachia Waltz. I actually composed a symphony based on that theme, and it's called the Americana Symphony. And the entire last movement is the theme that I wrote, Appalachia Waltz. And it's a variation symphony, so each movement presents the theme in a different light. I also have string orchestra versions of it, and the various string versions, the trios and so forth. And we also feature it in the O'Connor method. We've got one last piece to play for you. We want to thank you so much for tuning in, and we sure hope you enjoyed our music and our performance tonight. It was great to be with you. Thanks for all the great questions, too. We're going to dive into that 5-day string camp the last week of July. So for all information on the O'Connor method, just go to o'connormethod.com, and there's links to all the academic pages and videos and all kinds of information about the method, and also the store links and the link to register for our online virtual camp. So please check that out. And we're going to do a medley of 2 more compositions of mine called Swing 1111 and Sweet Suzanne. And we thank you very much, and we hope to see you in not the too distant future. And in the meantime, we're here every Monday. This is exactly what it looks like. Every Monday night, Mondays with Mark and Maggie. And also my new guitar album. It's coming out in a week and a half. And we're really excited about that. It's gonna get a lot of reviews in guitar magazines. I haven't been in guitar magazines in years, decades. So this is a whole new arrival again for me. I grew up also playing guitar as well. So we're going to leave you with some really fun swing and jazz stuff. Swing 1111, Sweet Suzanne. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.